Right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the latest AI news. We had a pretty interesting mix, actually. Everything from, Elon Musk's always colorful takes to some really thought-provoking stuff on AI safety and regulation. Should be fun.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing to see just how fast this field is moving, and today's news really highlights, I think, the incredible potential, but also the need to really think carefully about the impact AI is having, on
Well,
everything.
let's start with Elon, right? When he's saying that AI has basically exhausted all human data. Is that even possible? How do you even?
It's a very Elon statement, isn't it? Bold, for
Yeah.
sure. But, there was actually a recent paper that came out, academic paper, and they predicted that we could actually run out of publicly available data as early as 2026. So, maybe he's onto something. There's definitely
I
a...
know. Okay, so 2026, that's like right around the corner. What happens then? Does
Mhm.
AI development just stop?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we're already seeing companies like Meta and Microsoft, they're starting to explore using synthetic data. So, data that's actually created by AI
Yeah.
to train their models.
So AI is making its own data to learn from. Isn't that a little, I don't know, circular, like a snake eating its own tail or something?
Yeah, that's a good analogy, and it is a concern. I mean, if we're just training AI on data made by other AI, there's this risk of something called model collapse. Basically, the output, it starts to get worse over time, less diverse, potentially even more biased. So, something to watch out for.
Makes sense. It feels like we're walking this tightrope, right? Needing huge data sets to train these powerful AIs, but then running into all these potential issues with the data itself.
Totally. And then you layer on top of that this whole debate about who controls the data, who has access to it. Even OpenAI, the folks behind ChatGPT, they've admitted that using copyrighted material for training, it's basically unavoidable.
Yeah, and that sparked some pretty big legal fights, right?
Yeah.
Authors, publishers, they're saying, hey, you're using our stuff. We deserve to be compensated. Tough problem.
Yeah. It really is. And it highlights, I think, this bigger need for clear rules, clear guidelines. How do we balance innovation with protecting creators? It's a huge question that everyone's trying to figure out.
Okay, well, speaking of tricky problems, let's talk about AI chatbots in those high stakes industries. Finance, healthcare. I mean, the margin for error there is pretty much zero.
Right. You really need accuracy, reliability. So there's this really interesting approach that I came across. The software engineer, Ashley Peacock, he's focused on building what he calls deterministic chatbots.
Deterministic. What does that even mean? In the context of chatbots?
Yeah. So basically, these chatbots, they're only allowed to give pre-approved answers. So human experts, SMEs, they review everything, make sure it's accurate, make sure it's compliant with all the regulations. It's like having a whole team of specialists double-checking every response.
I mean, that sounds super thorough, but I imagine it also makes it tough to have those real-time snappy responses
Yeah.
that people expect from a chatbot, right?
Yeah.
What if someone asks something that's not on the pre-approved list?
Right. Yeah. There's definitely a trade-off there. So in Peacock's model, those off-script questions, they would basically get flagged for human review, which, yeah, could mean a bit of a delay. But in these industries, I mean, healthcare, finance, a small mistake can have huge consequences, right? So maybe accuracy over speed is the way to go in those cases.
Yeah, for sure. Depends on the situation, I guess, but definitely an interesting approach. Okay, so switching gears a bit, I wanted to ask about this deliberative alignment thing that OpenAI is working on. It sounds like it's all about AI safety, but what's the thinking there?
Yeah. So deliberative alignment, it's basically trying to solve this really tricky problem with large language models. They can be tricked into giving harmful outputs, or they can over refuse, benign requests, like they're being too cautious. It's all about making AI safer, more reliable.
So it's not just about filtering out bad words or something, right?
Exactly. It's deeper than that. It's about teaching these models to actually reason about safety. They're using this technique called chain of thought. So it's almost like you're teaching an AI to think like a detective, breaking down the problem step by step.
Okay, I like the detective analogy. So how does that work? In practice?
So imagine the AI gets a request from a user.
Right.
Instead of just jumping to an answer, it breaks it down, thinks about the safety guidelines, and then figures out, okay, does this request actually align with those guidelines? It's almost like you're making the AI show its work,
Yeah.
makes it more transparent and hopefully less likely to make a mistake or be manipulated.
That's pretty clever.
Right.
And I remember reading about an example where they actually use this technique to catch someone trying to trick the AI into giving instructions for like illegal activity.
Yes, and that's exactly what makes this so exciting. It's not just about following rules blindly, you know. We might actually be moving towards AI that can understand the principles behind those rules and make more nuanced judgments based on the context. Really promising stuff.
That's a big step forward, building AI that we can actually trust. Now, speaking of trust, OpenAI is also in the news for this economic blueprint thing they put out. So basically, their take on how the government should regulate AI, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's basically it's them saying, "Hey, AI isn't just a cool tech demo anymore. It's going to change everything. And we need some rules, some guidelines to make sure it happens responsibly."
It's really interesting, right? A tech company actually getting into the policy arena like that.
Yeah, it shows how much influence they have and how seriously they're taking this whole question of AI's impact on society. It's not just a technical issue anymore.
So, what are some of the key things they're pushing for? What should our listeners be paying attention to?
Well, one of the big ones is increased government spending
Mhm.
on infrastructure to support AI development. So they're basically saying, look, the US needs to invest heavily if we want to stay ahead in this global AI race.
Which is interesting because we were just talking about potential data shortages.
Right.
So it sounds like they're trying to tackle this from both sides, exploring synthetic data and also advocating for policies that could make more data available.
Exactly. They're trying to cover all their bases.
Hmm.
And then another really key point is their stance on using copyrighted material. They basically argue that restricting access to that material, it would be a huge setback for AI innovation, especially as other countries, you know, China, they're moving full steam ahead.
So they're essentially saying loosen up the copyright rules when it comes to AI. I mean, I can already imagine how controversial that's going to be.
Oh, absolutely. But it does reflect, I think, the reality of how AI is being developed right now. They're saying, look, you need to be able to use publicly available information, including copyrighted stuff, to create these powerful and versatile AI systems.
It's a tough balancing act for sure. Like, how do you protect creators but also not stifle innovation?
Exactly. And it's a debate that's only going to get more heated as AI gets more powerful and more widespread.
All right. Well, before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, let's take a look at some of the more diverse ways that AI is being used. We were talking earlier about how it's showing up in construction and manufacturing, especially with this multimodality thing.
Yeah, that's right. AI's ability to see the world, to understand the physical world, it's changing those industries. Marco Casalena, he's the VP of Azure AI. He gave an interview recently and was talking about, you know, how AI is being used to optimize construction projects, improve safety on job sites. Really interesting stuff.
So you've got AI-powered drones inspecting buildings for flaws, and then you've got like AI-powered robots doing dangerous tasks in factories. Pretty amazing.
Right. And it's not just about like efficiency, it's about, you know, augmenting human capabilities,
Yeah.
making those workplaces safer.
And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got these researchers at MIT. They're teaching AI to imitate sounds.
Right. That's right. And they've taken this really interesting approach. They're actually modeling their AI on the human vocal tract. So it can actually understand and produce these vocal imitations of everyday sounds, which is, I mean, it's a huge step forward for creating those really intuitive, expressive sonic interfaces.
Wow. So it's not just recognizing sounds; it's actually learning to mimic them, to create them, like we do.
Exactly. And that opens up, I mean, so many possibilities. Think about sound design, music composition, maybe even language learning. Who knows?
It's really incredible to see AI being used in so many different ways. Like we've gone from construction sites to sound studios in like 5 minutes.
It just goes to show you how powerful and versatile this technology really is.
Well, I feel like we've covered a ton of ground already, and we're just getting started. I think we need to take a little break, but we'll be back soon to dig into some of these topics even deeper. Stay tuned.
Yeah, it really is amazing, you know. Just how AI is touching everything these days, like how we work, how we create, how we even experience the world around us. It's crazy.
And it's moving so fast. It feels like every day there's some new breakthrough, some headline about how AI is going to like revolutionize or disrupt, I don't even know, everything.
Right. And that speed is exactly why I think OpenAI is pushing for this proactive approach to regulation. They're saying, look, we need to get ahead of this. We need to set some guidelines, make sure AI is developed responsibly.
Right, that economic blueprint we were talking about before. Let's dig into that a little bit more. Like, what are some of their specific recommendations?
So one of the big things they're pushing for is a national AI strategy, one that, prioritizes innovation, but also addresses the potential risks. So it's about finding that balance, right? Fostering a thriving AI ecosystem, but also putting some safeguards in place.
It sounds like they're trying to walk a pretty fine line there, encouraging development, but also making sure it's being used responsibly.
Exactly. And they lay out like several key elements for this strategy: increased funding for research and development, initiatives to promote collaboration between, you know, industry, academia, government, all that good stuff.
So it's not just about setting rules; it's about creating this whole culture of responsible AI innovation.
Exactly. And then they also really emphasize international cooperation. Like this isn't just a US thing, right? It's global. We need coordinated efforts to set standards for AI development, deployment, all of it.
Yeah, makes sense. AI doesn't really care about borders, does it? So we need a global approach to managing its impact.
Totally. And another interesting point they bring up is the need for like a flexible regulatory framework, one that can actually adapt to the speed of AI innovation. Because, traditional regulatory approaches, they can be slow, cumbersome, not really ideal when you're dealing with a technology that's evolving this quickly.
So how do they propose we do that? Like, how do we create regulations that can keep up with AI?
Well, one idea they suggest is using things like sandboxes, basically creating these controlled environments where companies can test and deploy new AI technologies, with oversight, of course, and with safety in mind.
So kind of like a safe space for innovation. You can explore the potential of AI without just unleashing it on the world.
Exactly. And this ties back to their whole argument for a national AI strategy that prioritizes innovation, right? They're saying, "Hey, the US can stay ahead in this AI race if we create an environment where people can experiment, push the boundaries, but do it responsibly."
To find that sweet spot, push the limits, but do it safely.
Exactly. And then they also talk a lot about, transparency, accountability, fairness. It's not just about building powerful AI, it's about building AI that we can actually trust.
Trust. That's definitely a big theme here. I mean, as AI gets more powerful, it's it's more important than ever that we understand how it works, that we can, hold it accountable and that we can make sure it's being used in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Totally. And these conversations, these debates about AI regulation, governance, they're so important because they're going to shape the future of AI and its impact on humanity.
It's encouraging to see a company like OpenAI, a company that's really leading the charge here, actually engaging in these discussions. They're not just focused on the tech. They're thinking about the bigger picture, the societal impact.
Yeah, it's a sign that the industry is maturing, I think, recognizing that they have a responsibility to engage with these really important issues.
Well, speaking of AI's impact on society, let's circle back to some of those specific applications we talked about earlier. Like we were talking about how AI is being used in construction, manufacturing, with this whole multimodality thing.
Right, right. AI's ability to see the world, to understand the physical world, it's revolutionizing those industries. Like we talked about AI-powered drones inspecting buildings for flaws, AI-powered robots taking on those dangerous tasks in factories.
It's really amazing to see how AI can like augment human capabilities, make those workplaces safer.
Exactly. It's not about replacing people. It's about, giving them the tools, the support they need to do their jobs more effectively, more safely.
And then you've got those researchers at MIT. They're teaching AI to imitate sounds, like
Hmm.
mimicking the human
Yeah.
vocal tract. It's
I
crazy.
know, right? It's really incredible. And it just shows you how versatile AI is. Like it has the potential to impact so many different fields, creative arts, education, healthcare, who knows what else.
I'm really fascinated by the potential for music composition, sound design.
Hmm.
Like imagine being able to create entirely new sounds, new musical experiences, things that we can't even imagine yet.
Or using AI to develop like personalized sound therapies for people with hearing impairments or other conditions. The possibilities are really endless.
Well, this deep dive has been quite a journey. I mean, we've gone from the philosophical implications of AI, like exhausting all human knowledge, to the very practical applications of AI on construction sites, in factories, even in music studios.
Amazing how much ground we've covered.
And we've really only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in the world of AI.
I think the main takeaway here is that AI isn't just something that's happening in the background. It's something that's going to touch every aspect of our lives.
So whether you're excited about AI, apprehensive about it, or just curious, it's so important to stay informed, to engage in these conversations about its development, its impact on society.
Because the future of AI, it's not something that's predetermined. It's something that we're all shaping together.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to one more point from OpenAI's economic blueprint that really stuck with me. They talk about the importance of making sure that the benefits of AI are shared widely. Making sure that we don't end up in a situation where AI just exacerbates existing inequalities.
Right. That's a really crucial point. As AI gets more powerful, more pervasive, we need to make sure that it's being used to benefit everyone, not just, a select few.
They're basically saying that the government should play a role in promoting equitable access to AI education, training, and that they should support policies that help mitigate potential job displacement.
Like they're acknowledging that this AI revolution, it has the potential to be incredibly disruptive, and we need to take steps to make sure that everyone benefits from it, not just the people who are already in positions of power and privilege.
Yeah, it's a call for a more inclusive, a more equitable approach to AI development deployment, one that really prioritizes the well-being of all people and the planet.
Yeah, it's a powerful message. It's one that we all need to take seriously.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final question to think about.
Yeah.
Given the potential for both positive and negative impacts, how can we ensure that AI is used to create a more just and sustainable future for all of us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that we all need to be thinking about, talking about, and working towards.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and we encourage you to keep exploring these topics, keep engaging in the ongoing conversation about AI's role in our world.
It's a fascinating journey, and it's one that we're all on together.
So we've talked about a lot, right? Like all this crazy progress in AI, the need for responsible development, and then the whole challenge of trying to regulate this technology that's changing so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest hot button issues right now is this whole thing about using copyrighted material for AI training. And OpenAI's economic blueprint, the document we've been unpacking this whole episode, they really go all in on this debate.
Yeah, they do. They're basically saying, look, AI developers should be able to use anything that's publicly available, and that includes copyrighted stuff. Pretty bold stance.
It is, and it's caused a lot of pushback. I mean, you've got creators, publishers, they're worried about their intellectual property rights.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, you can't just use our work without permission, without compensating us.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it raises all these questions about how we value creativity, how we protect it, especially in this age of AI. It's tricky.
For sure. And OpenAI, they acknowledge these concerns, but their argument is that if you restrict access to this copyrighted material, it's going to hurt AI innovation. Like
Sure.
it could put the US behind in this global AI race.
So are they saying that the potential benefits of AI they outweigh the concerns about copyright?
Essentially, yeah. They point out that other countries, China, for example, they're not as strict about copyright when it comes to AI. And they're saying, look, if the U.S. clamps down too hard, we're going to fall behind.
It's a classic dilemma, right?
Mhm.
Innovation versus protection. Like, how do we find that balance?
Right. And OpenAI actually suggests that there might be like a middle ground here. They say the government could maybe set up a system where AI developers could access copyrighted material, but with some safeguards in place.
Okay, interesting. So, like, what kind of safeguards are we talking about?
So they throw out a few ideas, like maybe creators could have the option to opt out, to say, hey, don't use my stuff. Or maybe there could be some kind of like compensation system for creators whose work is used in these training data sets. And they also really emphasize transparency. They're saying AI developers should be clear about what data they're using, how they're addressing these copyright concerns.
So it's about being responsible,
Right.
giving credit where credit's due, maybe even like sharing revenue. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's definitely going to be a big topic of discussion as policymakers try to figure out how to regulate AI.
Well, on that note, I mean, OpenAI's blueprint, they also talk a lot about the government's role in supporting AI development.
Yeah.
Like they're calling for big investments in research, infrastructure, all that stuff.
Yeah, their argument is that AI is it's not just another technology, it's fundamental. It's going to drive economic growth, it's going to determine national competitiveness in the 21st century.
And they're pointing out that other countries are spending tons of money on AI. China especially. So they're saying, hey, the U.S. needs to step up its game if we want to stay ahead.
Exactly. And specifically they're calling for, more funding for research grants, investments in computing infrastructure, data centers, high performance computing, and also like a focus on building a skilled AI workforce. It's a big agenda.
Ambitious for sure.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's not without its critics, right? I mean, some people are probably saying it's too focused on industry that is not paying enough attention to the potential downsides of AI, like job displacement or even like making existing inequalities worse.
Oh, absolutely. And those are valid concerns. I mean, like we've been saying this whole time, it's not just about building powerful AI. It's about making sure that AI is used in a way that benefits everyone, that it makes society better.
Right. It has to be a win for everyone, not just a select few.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we need like a more holistic approach to AI,
Yeah.
right? One that considers not just the economic impact, but also the ethical implications, the societal impact, all of it.
Absolutely. And that's the challenge, right? Finding that balance,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI, but doing it in a way that's responsible, that's ethical, that's beneficial for all of humanity.
Well, I feel like this deep dive has been like a whirlwind tour of the AI landscape.
Yeah.
We've covered so much. From like the nitty-gritty of how AI actually works, that chain of thought thing,
Yeah.
to these big policy debates about data access, copyright, all of it. It's a lot.
It is, and it's amazing to see how AI it's not just some futuristic thing anymore. It's already here. It's already shaping our world in so many ways.
We've seen how it's is making industries more efficient, how it's pushing the boundaries of creativity, how it's forcing us to ask some really tough questions about ethics, about the future of work. It's a lot to process.
It is, but I think the big takeaway for our listeners is this. AI is not something to be afraid of. It's not something to ignore. It's something to understood to be engaged with. And ultimately it's something that we can shape to make the world a better place.
So whether you're an AI expert, you're just starting to learn about this stuff, or you're somewhere in between, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought, and we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking those tough questions
Mhm.
because the future of AI, it's up to all of us.
Well said. It's been a great conversation.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of AI.